Welcome, everyone. Those of you who, like me, find yourselves drawn to this age-old question, what awaits us after we die? For answers, we're turning to the Book of Mormon, specifically Alma chapter 40.
A chapter where Alma doesn't shy away from this topic. He really just dives right into the heart of it, offering a perspective that might surprise some.
And what is that perspective?
Well, right away in verse 2, Alma kind of paints this picture of death, that it's not like a sudden end, it's a transition.
Yeah, he says, this mortal body does not put on immortality, this corruption does not put on incorruption until after Christ returns.
Exactly, and it's almost like he's saying there's this divine makeover.
It's a very interesting way to put it.
It really is, and it speaks to a crucial point, right? Our transformation into these eternal beings, it isn't instant upon death. It's very much tied into Christ's second coming.
So it sounds as it's less about when we die and more about what happens after, on God's time.
Exactly, and that divine timetable, as described in verse 4, it remains a mystery.
He says, when this time cometh, no one knows, but God knoweth the time which is appointed.
Right.
It's kind of reassuring in a way, isn't it? It's less about marking calendars and more about trusting in something bigger than us.
Absolutely. And this idea of God's time, it goes beyond just, when we'll be resurrected. Alma kind of hints at a different understanding of time itself.
How so?
Well, if you look at verse 8, he says, all is as one day with God, and time only is measured unto men. It begs the question, what does it mean for time to be perceived differently by God? Is it linear as we understand it? Is it cyclical? Something else entirely.
Well, those are questions for some serious pondering, for sure.
Lots to think about.
But before we get ahead of ourselves, Alma dives into that space between death and resurrection. That liminal space that I think we all wonder about. And verses 6 through 9 really reveal his struggle to comprehend this mystery.
And what I find striking is just his honesty. He says, concerning this space of time, what becometh of the souls of men is the thing which I have inquired diligently of the Lord to know. Alma 40.9.
I love that. It's so relatable.
It really is. Even a prophet like Alma grappled with uncertainty and actively sought divine guidance.
Yeah, no pretense. He just lays it all out there. It's a reminder that we're all on a journey of seeking. We all have these big questions.
Indeed. And notice how he frames his pursuit of knowledge. It's not through speculation or just human wisdom. He goes straight to divine revelation.
Right.
He says, this is the thing of which I do know, Alma 40.9.
Right.
This emphasis on seeking personal revelation, on going straight to the source, that's a cornerstone of faith.
Absolutely. So what did Alma learn about this in between, this mystery? Did he find answers?
He did. And what he reveals in verses 11 through 14 is a picture of two very distinct destinations. For departed souls, paradise and outer darkness.
Now this is where the imagery gets really interesting. Paradise, as Alma describes it, it's like pure serenity. It's a place of happiness, rest, peace, where the righteous find refuge from all their troubles.
He even says in verse 12 that they are brought back into the presence of God.
It's a very comforting image.
It is,
Yeah.
and it's a vision of solace that we see, across different faiths, different cultures, just this glimpse into a realm where suffering ceases.
But then there's outer darkness, and that's a pretty stark contrast.
It is. For those who choose wickedness, Alma doesn't sugarcoat things.
He says, they are cast out into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth. Alma 40.13.
That's right.
So it's not simply punishment, it sounds like. It's about experiencing the natural consequences of our actions, even in the afterlife.
Exactly. And this concept of accountability, this reaping what we sow is woven into Alma's teachings. It's not about arbitrary judgment, but facing the ramifications of our choices. It prompts us to ask, what choices are you making today that will shape our eternal tomorrow?
It really does. And it leads us to this concept that often causes debate and confusion. The first resurrection, as Alma calls it in verse 15.
A very fascinating point indeed. It seems some people in Alma's time mistakenly equated this first resurrection with the separation of the soul from the body at death.
But Alma's quick to clarify that that's not quite right.
Exactly. He sets the record straight. He emphasizes that the true first resurrection, it's much more profound.
So what is it then?
It's not just about the soul's journey. It's about this glorious reunion of the body and soul. And this is a very distinct concept that you find in the Book of Mormon's view of the afterlife.
I see.
He states it very clearly in verse 18, it meaneth the reuniting of the soul with the body of those from the days of Adam down to the resurrection of Christ.
So it's not just about where we go, it's who we become.
That's right. Complete beings restored to our intended glory.
And this restoration.
Well, it's not just a vague notion. Alma goes into remarkable detail about what it entails, but we'll delve into that further in just a bit. But for now, I'd love to hear what resonates most with you so far from what we've discussed.
It's fascinating, this concept of the first resurrection, because what really stands out is that it emphasizes the physical body. Like it's actually an integral part of our eternal identity. It challenges the idea that the body is just some temporary vessel we discard after death.
So it's like saying our bodies aren't just shells, they're essential to who we are, even in the eternities. It really makes you think about how we treat our bodies in this life.
Absolutely. And if the body is destined for this glorious restoration, shouldn't we be taking care of it like a sacred gift? It invites us to look at our physical selves differently.
Like it adds another layer to stewardship. It's not just about caring for the earth or our possessions, but about honoring these bodies we've been given.
Exactly. And this restoration that Alma describes in verses 20 through 26, it's breathtaking.
What does he say? Well, he uses this vivid language. He says, "The soul shall be restored to the body, and the body to the soul. Yea, and every limb and joint shall be restored to its body. Yea, even a hair of the head shall not be lost. But all things shall be restored to their proper and perfect frame." Alma 40.23.
It's like putting a divine puzzle back together. Every single piece, perfect.
It speaks to this level of care and precision that's just beyond what we can grasp, you know? And it's not just about the physical form either. Alma really emphasizes the restoration of the soul as well.
So both, right?
Yeah,
A complete restoration of the individual, body and spirit reunited in perfect harmony.
Exactly. And while this resurrection is promised to everyone, Alma's clear that the experience won't be the same for everyone.
Right, because the quality of our resurrected existence hinges on the choices we've made during our mortal lives.
That's right. It brings us right back to those two destinations, paradise and outer darkness.
Okay.
And in these verses 24 through 26, he explains further what those destinations actually entail.
Okay, so for the righteous.
They experience radiant glory in the resurrection. They shine forth in the kingdom of God. There's this deep joy and fulfillment.
So inspiring, like a glimpse into a realm where we achieve our full potential.
And then for those who choose wickedness, there's a very different reality. Alma calls it an awful death. Alma 40.26.
Instead of liberation and joy?
It's the opposite. They're cast out and experience this continuation of torment and darkness. The darkness they chose in life.
It's a reminder about the impact our actions have, not just in this life, but eternally.
And what's striking is that this concept of judgment, it's not about, earning points or checking boxes. It's about the state of our hearts, the essence of who we become through our choices.
So what are we cultivating within ourselves? Are we leaning toward compassion and kindness and humility? Or are we holding on to pride and selfishness and darkness?
Those are important questions because ultimately our eternal destiny, it's not about chance, it's about choice, the path we choose to walk.
So if we look beyond paradise and outer darkness, what are the big lessons from Alma's teachings here? What can we apply to our lives now, regardless of our beliefs?
To me, one of the most powerful takeaways is Alma's commitment to seeking truth. Even with these huge mysteries, he didn't shy away from uncertainty, he embraced it. He sought answers from God. And that same spirit of inquiry, of seeking knowledge and understanding, we can all cultivate that.
It's recognizing that we don't have all the answers, and it's okay to have questions. And that seeking those answers through prayer or studying scripture or just reflecting, that's vital to our spiritual growth.
Absolutely. And remember, true knowledge is more than just gathering facts. It's about transforming our hearts, aligning our lives with God's will, becoming more like Him.
It's not just what we know. It's how we live. Alma's teachings are so much more than just explaining what happens after we die. They offer a way to live a more meaningful life, a life of purpose, a life that echoes truth and light, one that prepares us for what awaits beyond this life.
Beautifully said. And this journey of seeking, of aligning ourselves with God's will, it's not a solo mission. As we dig deeper into Alma's teachings, we find this huge emphasis on community, on supporting each other on this path of eternal progression.
That's important. As we move forward in this conversation, how can we support each other, both individually and as a community, on this journey of spiritual growth? How can we create those spaces where it's safe to ask those tough questions, to grapple with doubts, and to seek truth together? It is a beautiful idea, isn't it? This community that kind of journeys together, seeking truth and supporting each other along the way. But how do we create that? I mean, it's easy to talk about, but actually living it out, that's a whole different story.
Yeah, and I think Alma gives us some insights into that. If we look closer at his teachings, we find this recurring theme of service, reaching out to those in need, building each other up. It's not just about our own individual salvation, it's about helping others find their way back to God.
Yeah, like in Alma chapter 34, verse 28, he tells us to succor those that stand in need of your succor. Yea, clothe the naked and feed the hungry, visit the sick, and administer to their relief, both spiritually and temporally, according to their wants. Alma 34.28.
Exactly. It's a reminder that faith isn't just what we believe, but how we act, how we love, how we serve.
And it's not just limited to our own faith or community either, right?
Right. In Alma 41.14, he says, God granteth unto men according to their deeds.
Yeah.
Meaning our actions have universal consequences, regardless of what we believe or who we associate with.
It reminds us that we're all connected, all part of a larger picture, all woven together by our choices and actions.
It really is a powerful image, and it pushes us to be more compassionate, to see that divine spark in everyone and lend a hand to those who are different from us, who have different beliefs, or have made different choices.
It all comes back to the question of how do we build these communities where we can seek truth and grow spiritually.
Yeah, and I think it starts by fostering this atmosphere of love and acceptance, a space where people feel safe to share their doubts, ask tough questions, grapple with the hard stuff without judgment.
So creating a space where vulnerability and authenticity are valued and genuine connection can happen. It's about going deeper than surface level conversations and having these challenging, inspiring, meaningful conversations.
Right, and it doesn't always have to be serious. There's room for joy and laughter, too. Alma talks about paradise being a place of peace, but also happiness.
Yeah, it's about balance.
Right.
Embracing everything about the human experience and building communities where people can just be themselves, flaws and all.
Exactly.
So it's about belonging, feeling seen, heard, and loved, not just for what you believe, but for who you are.
I think when that happens, something truly magical happens. A community becomes more than just a group of people. It's a sanctuary, a source of strength and hope in a world that so often feels divided. So as we think about Alma's teachings, I challenge each of you, how can you help create this kind of community? Maybe within your own circles, or by reaching out to those who feel isolated or disconnected. Small acts of kindness, listening with an open heart, and offering grace to those who are struggling.
It's about fostering curiosity and compassion. It's about seeking truth and supporting each other, the foundation of our journey together. And when we do this, we might find that the things we learn from these ancient scriptures, like the Book of Alma, can not only change our own lives, but change our communities and the world around us. Thanks for joining us on this exploration, and don't forget to subscribe for more discussions like this.